Welcome back. We're going to be looking at how we can use inclusivity in computer science to address how we can work with color as well. As you can see on the screen right now, we have the amazing pride flag with a little adaptation that we've made here. So we've created with code, and it's part of our creativity project. So we want to make it so we can actually do some cool creative work and also support inclusivity and human rights as we write our code. So as you can see right here, we're making a brand new SwiftUI struct. I'm calling it Rainbow View because it's supporting a rainbow as its default logic. We have a var body with a VStack. I'm using a make purple shape from our color project. We'll take a look at that here in a minute. And then we put a VStack inside there with a pride flag with a specified width and height. And then the default pride flag. We have some text where we're using a gradient foreground, so we can actually apply a gradient across that and using a gradient foreground with that and how we can do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the pieces that make this up and then the logic to make that happen. First thing we have, of course, is we have to create the actual pride flag. As you can see, our pride flag is a type of view. It conforms to that protocol, so it has, of course, a body variable. We also introduced a variable for width and height, so we can keep track of how big it wants to be displayed. The first thing we do is we're going to make a rectangle object. So the rectangle is a struct that's built into Swift. It's a rectangle shape. I know, crazy. And we're going to fill it with a pride gradient. So we'll take a look at how we can make that happen, but it makes a rainbow pride gradient right here. So it looks like the pride flag or a rainbow that we can display using code itself. So it's a great way we can demonstrate that. You can see it makes a small one or a big one based on the size of the actual structure we're working with. And then we use a triangle that we overlay on top of that, and we use a trans-inclusive gradient on that. The trans-inclusive pride flag also addresses the fact that the flag itself needs to support Black and Indigenous people of color when we're talking about using inclusivity and human rights inside computer science. And so we have the fact that it uses the white, the pink, the blue, the brown, and the black, of course, as part of that to make that gradient structure so it works as in that we see inside the new trans-inclusive pride flag as well. So that's how we build this together. The next thing we have to do is we have to actually go and look at the logic that makes this happen so we can put it together. We have a triangle. Triangle is really simple. It's just a really basic struct. It's a shape that you can see right here just to make a path inside there like we've done in some of our other projects where we simply draw lines to make that path itself. When we're creating the triangle to actually overlay that to create the pride flag itself, we have to use, of course, the Func path, which is a part of a shape. All shape structures use that protocol that they conform to. And that parameter itself, rect, is we're going to use it so we can actually make it so that that triangle goes to the correct space inside the rectangle we're talking about. And so I use that path, and I use a move to, and I do CG point, and then I use the minimum x and the rect min y. So I stop in the top left corner right here. I'm going to add a line to this new CG point, passing the max x divided by 3. So I get 1/3 of the rectangle I'm working with. So let's do the max x divided by 3, and my middle, my y. So it gets me this point right here. And then I do a line down here to the max x and min y again. Excuse me, the min x and the max y again. And then I use the closed subpath so it draws the line up and creates the whole triangle shape. Really pretty easy for that. And then I put those pieces together to actually do that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the color tools that allow us to make that happen. And so that's how I get this cool color effect of the pride flag itself, as well as the create purple shade we're working with here, and applying that same gradient right here. So let's go take a look at that. So the first thing we're going to do is go into our colortools.swift file. Our colortools.swift is a little helper file. We're using this so we can actually do a whole bunch of different things. It's a utility file, so it's not going to be its own class or struct. It's a collection of methods we use to do things with color, hence the term color tools. So the first thing we have to do is, because there's not a good brown defined within the actual Swift library, I had to create my own brown for this. And so this is a color you could use and adapt to make it so it fits the best representation of brown. And so it's a new color, and I'm going to send it red is 101 divided by 255, its green is 67 over 255, and its blue is 33.0 over 255. And again, as you can see, the division itself, it creates the percentage values we're going to put to make a Swift color, just like we do for all our other colors, like we're doing random color stuff. The next thing we do is we're using gradients. So the gradients are the term that allow it to spread the colors over a region of space. And we're doing that right here with the two functions, create pride gradient, which returns a linear gradient, and trans-inclusive, which returns a radial gradient. They're a little bit different, and we'll take a look at them really fast. The first one we have is the create pride gradient. We're going to let pride colors be red, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, purple. And we're doubling the reds and the purple on here, the two ends of that spectrum, to make sure that when we actually put that gradient together, that we don't lose that dark edge of the color right there when we're putting that gradient. So that's why I doubled up those two colors to make sure we have a nice, really solid border for that gradient. So it's using the two border colors, or they're doubling those colors right there, it makes the gradient itself look really nice, especially as it flows towards the middle across those colors. Then I create the gradient itself. It's a linear gradient, and I pass it that color array that we just created right there as its gradient based on those colors. And I set its start point to be dot top and its end point to be dot bottom. So that means that the it'll start up here at the top of the rectangle and end at the bottom, creating that gradient effect or that pride flag that we just saw earlier. The next function is our trans-inclusive one. Now this one does need to know the height so we can make sure we can create that rectangle appropriately when we're creating that trans-inclusive radial gradient. And the radial gradient, unlike the linear gradient, just goes top to bottom, it radiates out like a circle. It's a conic section. So we're using that right there. So the first thing we have is our let colors is a gradient passing colors of white, pink, blue, brown, black, and black. So again, I'm using that double black right there to make sure I have a good amount of black at the edge of that to make sure I have a really good solid color with that at the end. Finally, I create a conic variable. That's a radial gradient. I pass it that colors array that we just made. And then I set its center to be leading, so it's going to be in the middle left. And its start radius is 1. Its end radius is height divided by 2. So I can take that radius out to make it so it makes a nice size of that based on the actual supplied parameter when I create that gradient. We have our make purple shade from our color project we did earlier in the year. As you can see, it just creates a nice shade of purple. You can make your own shade-based tool using your favorite colors by looking at how you can actually adapt those values and creating the red and blue range and green ranges for those percentages, and then create a shade based on that. So that's what we're doing right there with make purple shade. Our random colors, just the standard one we do with that, just to create random colors all the time. So let's go ahead and go back to our rainbow view. Inside our rainbow view, again, we're using that create pride gradient as the fill, which creates this part right here. And then we use the trans-inclusive fill, which makes the triangle part, which fills it right there. So you can see it makes the triangle approach right there where it fills it in, so you can get that nice radiating support that uses a great little thing to have an approximation of the trans-inclusive pride flag. So it's a great little thing we can make for that. And then on this view extension right here, we're making it so we can have that same gradient approach applied to text as well, because the text by default doesn't support gradients, but we can apply an extension to it. So this text field that we have right here inside our lovely stack, on the thing right here, we just do text of Black Lives Matter. We're using that gradient foreground. I pass it the colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and I can have that same gradient approach lie across that. And so you can see the gradient of color go on the text right there. So it looks really cool. And all I have to do to make that happen is apply a foreground gradient instead of just a regular fill. And I use that with an overlay. And I create that overlay passing a linear gradient using those colors that I just applied as the parameter right here. And the start point is the top leading, and the end point is the bottom trailing. So it starts up here in the top left corner and goes down to the bottom right corner using English. If I was using a language that reads from right to left, it'd start up here and then go down to here. So that same gradient approach would look really cool that way as well. And so that's a way we can use computer science to create some art that supports inclusivity and human rights. We can make a pride flag right here and support Black Lives Matter as part of doing that. So talking about the importance of using human rights and inclusivity when we're doing computer science, and also have some cool fun stuff that we can make. Here's a great way you can do some more stuff with that. I hope you can have some fun and create work as well. Have a great time and see you soon. Cheers. Bye.